Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are when you're going to see this video. This video should go live 6 p.m. West African time or 6 p.m. Nigerian time. So that could be meet you either in the morning, afternoon, or evening. I do this every Sunday where I talk about the stocks I'm going to be watching broadly on the NGX this week. So please note that this is not investment or trading advice. So even though my criteria could probably, you argue, my criteria could be for trading purposes and all that, but this is just my thoughts, my views. I keep saying, and I will continue to say, you can't base your investment decisions or trading decisions on what people say. In any case, I'm not an active trader anyway. I'm more investor slash analyst. And also you just have to do your own, come to your own conclusions in terms of your financial decisions. And if you find the content useful, please like, share, subscribe. It helps with the channel. Thank you to everyone who's been doing so. And let me know where you are around the world. And just so in case, if the time zone is inconvenient, then I'm probably going for look adjusting time slightly and all that. Criteria for the watch list, as always, technical reasons, highs, lows, range trading, large volumes, then stocks with corporate actions such as board meetings to consider results which I think could be out either same day or anytime from now. First on my watch list, mutual benefits assurance. Insurance stocks were all the rage last week, upside, downside, large trading volumes, some days taking top spots in terms of trading volumes by or most actively traded stocks by value. So mutual benefits assurance was the best performing stock last week, gained 31.85% to close at 3 naira and 85 kobo. Obviously, when you have this kind of gains, you would have some profit taking. So profit taking means some people sell down their holdings, you have more sales than buys. That then means that the price would go down. So I think that's very likely what will happen. But it's also possible that the stock will keep running. So markets are unpredictable, and you just have to. That's the essence of tuning into markets every day to see what's happening. If you are a short-term player, UPDC was the worst performing stock last week. I think it was down by slightly more than 10%. So it's possible the stock could rebound slightly this week, depending on how market sentiments go. Okomo and Presco. Okomo and Presco, I saw some softness last week. I suspect that, what's it called? Maybe I should actually switch this because Presco, Okomo is a smaller firm. Let me just see if I can switch this. Where are we now? Swap. Yeah, I know it's not a big deal for some people, but for me it's a big deal because some people you actually read if my English literature lessons are correct. You read from the left to the right. So if you have it the wrong way, then it confuses some people. So back to large volume. So Okomo and Presco, I think they'll be. I mean, Presco, I believe has its AGM coming up this week Tuesday. So company will be seeking shareholder approval to raise 250 billion, I think, in equity or so. And essentially, I can't remember where the 250 billion deal came from, but the company will be seeking approval to acquire the rest of, or to ratify this acquisition of GOPC, then acquire Saro, oil palm and all that. You can probably check the NGX website. The notice is up. But from a trading perspective, I suspect. I mean, I saw Okomo several times in last week's trading session. I saw Okomo dipping just below 1,000 naira mark. So I think if there is significant trading volume, we could close at that level. Why Presco? I mean, Presco ideally probably give it depending on how the investors and traders take the news from the AGM. I mean, but if you work out what's possible dilution or work out the additional number of shares, probably in my view, maybe you might have maybe a 10 to 20% more shares issued. So if you work out that number, and markets, of course, tend to price in news before the action. If you work that out, I think this stock could easily should drop maybe a 10, 20% to factor that in. So that's why these stocks have a joint place on my watch list. Insurance, as I said, was all the rage last week. Large volume trades last week, ICO, Universal Insurance, and Linkage. Universal Insurance has been trading large volumes since forever. I mean, even pre the news of the president signing the bill for entering into the market, stock has been trading large volumes because I think it's highly liquid. It's also fairly cheap. For ICO large volume trades kicked in after the announcement. Linkage, same thing as well. I mean, so obviously, as an analyst or investor or trader, whichever hat you wear, if you see large volume trades, the question you ask yourself is who's buying, who's selling? Is it retail? Is it institutional? Is it local? Or is it foreign? And luckily, when you have a big shout out to the guys at Info, where they have a trading terminal and they provide a weekly as well as daily market reports that provides that information. So the color around the transactions will help. With linkage in particular, I think linkage has somewhere around either 10.8 billion shares or 11 billion shares outstanding, meaning shares have been issued. Linkage probably has traded over a billion shares in the last 2 weeks. So clearly, linkage movements has a strong part of it. A huge chunk of that movement in linkage has to be institutional. So the question is who's buying and who's selling? We want to know. And this is where firms need to step up and give these disclosures promptly on time so people can factor that into their investment decisions. UBA has been trying to break above the 50 naira mark, but it's been a struggle. Would that happen this week? I don't know. I think UBA board meeting for H125 numbers were to take place last week. Yeah, or took place last week. It's unclear yet. I mean, obviously, after boards have met and company has sent the results to CBN, nobody knows when they come out after. And I think that's where the CBN has to kind of step up and all that between the CBN and the banks, because when you're looking at bigger markets around the world, if I take a JP Morgan, it's one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. I know when JP Morgan results are going to be out. I can predict it to the day. So it's easy to plan. So you're asking yourself, you have the biggest bank in the world giving you a timetable. Why can't we have the same thing happening in Nigeria? So it's possible if there's decent momentum, the stock breaks above the 15 naira point. QTix had last Friday, as the qualification date for its dividends. I think they're going to be paying 10 kobo a share, I believe, sometime in September. So it's possible. And usually, what happens with heavyweight investors, you see some investors position in a stock, especially if the dividend yield makes sense. So some people might get into a stock, wait for qualification date. And once qualification date expires, meaning they are rock sure I need to get my dividend, I can then sell off the shares and benefit from capital appreciation and the dividend. I'm also, if you are dealing in large volumes, so if you're moving what 1, 10, 20, 100 million naira transaction, then 5% ends in what 1 or 2 months. That's a decent chunk of money. And if you're able to get in at a decent dividend yield, 10, 15%, then it starts to make sense. In fact, if you're a savvy player, yeah, and you're dealing with a fairly large cash involved, you're able to benefit from maybe what 10, 15% capital appreciation, throwing maybe 5, 6% dividend yield. That's a 20 something percent gain in a couple of weeks or months. Beats your just keeping cash in a bank account. So I think you'd see the price dip a bit and all that. So GTCO, Access, Zenith, the gas banks, as I like to call them. GTCO and Access, what you have are holding companies, but the biggest units are banks anyway. So going by history, people would still call them banks. So a lot of times people might say, hey, GT Bank shares, Access Bank shares. And that's because the original entities that were listed were banks. And even though they've transmuted to holding companies, banks, I mean, memories and just colloquial use, stays. So I think H1 2025 results for these firms are due anytime from now. Board meetings held a couple of weeks ago. Results have been sent to, I believe, results by now most likely have been sent to the CBN. As usual, and as I said last week, and I maintain this week, what people want to know are how much is the interim dividend going to be. I mean, for if you look at the likes of the Orange Company, the Orange Bank, as I like to call it, what's the dividend going to be? Can we get a what? Who knows? Can we get higher than the 3 naira? I think they paid, if I recall correctly, and all that. So people are interested in the interim dividends for these stocks because if you work out the numbers or if the interim dividends, so don't even be surprised that a lot of the positioning you've seen in these stocks has been due to dividends because I mean you have Zenith trading at what? Zenith trading at 70s range or so. If you get a 5, 6, who knows, naira dividend, that's a decent dividend yield. More so if you're able to time in, get out properly, 4, 5% in a couple of weeks or months. It's a decent return if you're playing large portfolio, like I said in the previous slides and all that. So eyes on these banks. I mean, Access is the biggest bank in the country by assets. Everybody wants to know. For Access and Zenith, for me as an analyst, what I'd like to know is what's the size of the provisions that they're going to make. I mean, so far, markets have reacted somewhat mildly, if I can use that term, to provisions. When you look at the likes of First Holdco, what's 200 and something billion in provisions or so, stock didn't shake much. So, what you'd like to know, those are the things I'm watching out for. And so these stocks will remain on the watch list till results are out. I believe results will be out anytime from now. UAC popped a couple of weeks after news of the Chivita transaction. Then insurance bull run started, stock pulled back a bit. I think this stock will continue to range trade in mid 70s, 80s this week, and probably beyond that because beyond the Chivita transaction, I don't see any momentum that will move this stock, at least from a fundamental basis. So that's what we're going to be watching out for. For more content, check out the Green Ticker Tales podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music. Yesterday being Sunday, and depending on where you're watching this, if you're watching on YouTube, this video is out Sundays. If you're watching on LinkedIn, video goes up on Mondays. So just in case you're wondering what yesterday is or which of the yesterdays I'm referring to, I am referring to yesterday, Saturday. So Saturday, I think I have 4 Spotify episodes up on the pharma firms listed on the NGX. May and Baker, Fitzin, Mikure, and Nimet. For this day, today, I'm not sure yet. I'm working on content around new holdings. Interesting firm, quite like the plates. Fintech, very heavy on Brazil and all that. Pretty decent firm. So I'm working on that. That should be out maybe this evening, Sunday evening, or maybe it will be out sometime on Monday. I also need to go back to writing again. Monday, you should have my thoughts on the ongoing charms rights issue. I've shared that in a podcast episode, but I need to put it into writing and context and all that. So that's pretty much about it. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead. I'm recording this a bit earlier than usual. Usually I wait till like afternoonish. So if there's any information that filters in, I can include it and all that. But if anything comes up after this video, I would worst case scenario is I'll probably do a video on Monday, do an additional video or do a YouTube short just to talk about that occurrence. So thank you all for listening so far. Have yourselves a great and profitable trading week ahead.